Hello guys, PC Guy here with the news in tech and gaming for the week, and yes, I need to come up with a new, better name than that. But in any case, let's head on to the news section and see what has actually happened in the industry on the past week, and give you guys a nice little roundup to catch up if you have missed out. Now, this week has been quite filled with episodes of tech or gaming related companies just either screwing up or having malfunctioning products or getting involved in whatever other issues you can imagine. So let's start with the first one. And don't worry, there will be actual tech news after I go through this few episodes. But the first one is from Corsair, which has issued a recall order for some of its SF series power supplies. Now, apparently, power supplies with the lot numbers between these numbers that I highlighted here, they were manufactured between October 2019 and March 2020, and they seem to have an issue that they do not specify what it is, just say that it causes the PSU to fail, that when exposed to high temperatures and high humidity, well, the issue can happen. They go on to say that the issue happens to the primary side of the PSU and not on the side of the PSU that delivers power to your PC hardware. So, well, your PSU could stop working. It should not, according to them, damage your other components. In any case, if your power supply is an SF series from Corsair within this this batch number that you see there, you can return it to Corsair for a replacement free of charge. Now, this probably means that you have to have a backup power supply to run your PC in the meantime, since these things usually take time, but I would replace it sooner rather than later to avoid encountering any of the problems that they say can occur. Next up, Google. Google could be facing a class action lawsuit up to $5 billion for basically not being as private on its incognito mode as it leads people to believe. They go on to detail a few other things that the case might be built on, but basically the point is that they are still collecting data on you while you are on incognito mode that can be used to identify it if it falls in the wrong hands, and they're using it to basically build up the profile that they have of you, of your own information, and kind of see what the differences are in the type of browsing that you do on open mode or in private mode. If you go on the fine print of the incognito mode, so to say, it probably mentions there somewhere that they do still collect some kind of data. The thing is that for the average user, it can be argued that it really goes out of its way to assure you that you are not being tracked and no one's collecting information on you and all that sort of thing, while they are still doing that in the background. So they are claiming that millions of people have used incognito mode under that assumption that they were falsely led by Google, and they are seeking at least $5,000 of damages per user for violations of privacy laws. This is US privacy laws, mind you. It's unclear how this would affect overseas customers, users, but yeah, Google could be in a bit of trouble if this actually goes through, which it probably will not, considering Google's army of lawyers. It will probably pan out to nothing, really. That said, this does arise the issue that if you, whatever you are Googling when you are in incognito mode, keep in mind that maybe you are not as anonymous as you thought. Next in line, Western Digital is also facing a class action lawsuit over misadvertising their products and lying on the technical specifications, followed by basically doubling down on lying about it and claiming that no such thing had ever happened when they were actually confronted about it. They finally admitted to it on the face of the overwhelming evidence, but to sum things up real nice and quick, they claimed that their drives in this case did not use SMR or shingled magnetic recording technology. It is a slower, cheaper technology that is used on hard drives that is not only slower but also more prone to failure. They had claimed that the hard drives in question used conventional magnetic recording, which has, well, other than the speed, the advantage that it would be more reliable, as well as costing the company a bit more to implement. So they were basically lying all the way down to the specification sheet and not disclosing this at all. So they are claiming, in this case of this class action lawsuit, the damages or potential damages of all the customers that have these drives that might have lost data due to failure caused by this undisclosed technology replacement, let's say. And in the wake of this, other companies like Toshiba and Seagate, while they were not caught red-handed, they have preemptively also made public a list of impacted drives that also use SMR for people to double check. Although, as far as I know, there is no class action lawsuit being prepared against these companies and only the Western Digital. So as much as it sucks that basically you were lied to when you were buying your graphics card, if you got it under that impression, let's not panic if you, like someone else, just got the WD for reviewing and usage purposes. Next up, we're taking a look at Riot Games. The gaming company has been having a lot of issues with Valorant having been pumped up like crazy, especially on Twitch, where some people actually speculate that a lot of the big streamers were actually compensated for pumping up the game and basically advertising it. In any case, after a relatively smooth beta period, the game has attempted to launch earlier this week and faced major issues with the game just not working at all in many cases, and others like rewards from participating in the beta or buying stuff in the game during the beta not carrying over to the normal main game when it was fully launched as was promised. On the very same day, the game started getting review bombed in several review media outlets, so yeah, it does not look great for Valorant. I actually have a review of Valorant also in the works, so hopefully this will be resolved by the time I decide to finish recording it. Part of it is beta footage, that was fine. Let's see if I can actually get actual footage of the live game. Next up, and last for now in the list of companies that either screwed up or made an ass out of themselves throughout the week, Bob Swan, CEO of Intel, has kind of participated in a YouTube guest spot on Virtual Computex, and he not only confirmed that Tiger Lake Mobile will come out later this summer, but he went on to claim that people should just move away from looking at benchmarks to judge technology, and I guess that he means that we should just take Intel at their word that they are still market leaders and not actually double check to make sure that is true. So let me get this straight. Intel went from loving benchmarks when they were ahead to claiming only some real-world useful benchmarks were actually useful when they were starting to lose on benchmarks, but still ahead on those, to now when their pants are starting to catch on fire more and more, saying we should just ignore benchmarks altogether and focus on the practical uses and benefits of technology. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you have a part like a processor, the benefits and uses of that technology are basically how efficient it is at doing its function. In this case, for example, let's say video rendering or 3D modeling. And how exactly are you going to measure that? Are you just going to take a feel of how long it takes to perform a certain task, or are you going to actually present it with a controlled condition test, eliminating variables and making sure that the results are fair and honest while comparing it to other competitors? If only there was a name to call that, like let's say benchmark, then maybe we could actually make sure Intel is still the market leader they claim to be, and not just urging you to ignore all possible evidence in advance when we are about to get hit by the 3900 XT, etc., which, if early benchmark leaks are to be believed, are going to beat Intel into the ground. And that's not even talking about Zen 3 coming later in the year. So I think, and I seriously advise everyone to still keep looking at the benchmarks and not just take Intel at their words. Now let's move on to a bit more normal tech news. Starting with AMD, AMD CFO or Chief Financial Officer, whatever you want to call it, has gone on record on an interview by claiming that Big Navi will be AMD's first RDN2 based product. So not the next gen consoles. This means that the consoles are kind of gearing towards end of the year launch. So if Big Navi will be the first RDNA 2 product, it will launch before that. So the kind of expectation that it's going to be a September, October launch or something is kind of getting traction in this case with comments like this from an official source that, while not giving us an exact date, they kind of help frame it if you compare it to other events that he compares it to, like the console launch. So we can definitely expect to see it still this year. And he also goes on to claim that Big Navi is a Halo product. So this means a Halo product is usually referred as the top of the line in its field or in this type of product. So they definitely seem to be quite confident about this Navi 20 performance. It's not clear if they are claiming it to be a Halo product when comparing it to NVIDIA's Ampere or with NVIDIA's Turing, but this is what he said in any case. On a Windows Update news piece that is not actually horrible, apparently Windows Update is going to launch its May update. It's already rolling out for some PCs on a staggered fashion, which is unlike Microsoft, but it is a good change and definitely a good thing to catch any issues if there are any. There always are issues with Windows updates, who are we kidding? In any case, the May update is going to roll out hardware accelerated GPU scheduling, which basically allows your GPU to take control of its own VRAM and not wait for the operating system to tell it what to do. So this could potentially reduce latency in gaming and other applications that use your GPU. So definitely an important thing. We'll still have to see how much difference it actually makes and if there are any other steps that need to be taken to take advantage of this functionality. You do need to have your drivers updated. If you have NVIDIA cards, as long as you have the latest drivers, you are fine. If you have an AMD graphics cards, they have said that in the future patch they will enable support for this function. CES 2021, which usually would happen in January, seems to be geared towards still going ahead for a full-on in-person event despite potential health concerns that are still a factor right now. Even though it's kind of getting better throughout the world, they are still pressing events that could quickly turn for the worst. CES is apparently hoping that they will be able to go on with their actual in-person event and not hold it online or cancel altogether. It could always change. Until then, we're still many months before that, but apparently that's what they are aiming for. Starting off with our rumored / unconfirmed / leak section of our episode, it has been found on online retailers the 3900 XT, 3800 XT, and 3600 XT, and they are, as we kind of had already seen in other leaks, kind of confirms the difference to the boost clock. This is how they were listed, with basically the 3900 XT having a boost of 300 MHz on the base clock and 200 on the boost clock. Same story for the 3800 XT, and the 3600 XT having 200 MHz on the base and 300 on the boost clock in terms of improvements. As far as pricing goes, the 3900 XT was listed at $499, 3800 XT at $459, and 3600 XT at $319. This is in euros, mind you. I expect it not to differ a whole lot in dollars, even though processors in America usually are cheaper. These already have the tax included, so it kind of balances it out. As far as release dates and stuff like that, nothing is mentioned, but what we have heard so far is that they are about to be announced around midway through June, with availability being possibly the 7th of July. This is all unconfirmed and all rumor and leak based, mind you, so take it all with a grain of salt. Next up, we have what could be the first sighting of the so-called Big Navi or Navi 20 or 2X or whatever you want to call it that we just mentioned on the previous article. It has been cited on a Linux patch, which always is a good indicator when some new product is going to hit the shelves, because it has to be added to the Linux code. So this one has been codenamed in the code as Cichild. I don't know how to pronounce this. Sienna Cichild graphics card, I guess, is an attempt. at least. And it has been added to the Linux code, which will not be going live from what I read anytime soon. It's expected to happen around August. But once again, this would give some steam to the previous talk that I just did about it potentially being a September or October launch. An unnamed Intel CPU has just been spotted on a benchmark. It is a Rocket Lite S, judging by the motherboard listed on the screenshot, and it is an 8-core 16-thread clocked at 4.3 megahertz, so a bit lower than we are used to. It does have hyperthreading. It seems to be possibly a successor of the 10700K, unless Intel is boosting the core counts, and in that case it could potentially be a new and improved version of the, let's call it the 10600K that is currently available. All speculation, mind you, this is no confirmed information, and it has been put through the Firestrike and Time Spy tests on 3D Mark and scored 1746 and 605. It's probably an engineering sample chip, as the article concludes, and also the frequency could not be final. It could get higher boost clock still, or it could just be a fact that, keep in mind, we are getting a new architecture with this release. So with new architecture usually comes an improvement on IPC or instructions per clock or cycle, whatever you want to call it. In any case, this means that the CPU will get more work done at the same frequency, so it might not even be necessary to bump the frequency up that much to get some better performance. But see, these have been the biggest news in tech and game for the week. I hope you guys have caught up. I will try to get these episodes out on Saturdays for people that don't really keep up with the news throughout the week, to be able to catch up with them in a nice and easy manner. And well, then they know at least what has happened, and if they want to know more into it, they know what to look for. So hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Click the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. That really helps the channel to grow, and it always gives a lot of encouragement to keep things going, not to mention opens possibilities for the future to get more collaborations and sponsored content, and just improve things like video, lighting, and audio, all that sort of stuff, make more and better content for you guys. So hope I'll see you guys in the next video, and in the meantime, as always, have fun.